so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo woo.
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. There it is.
That's what I like. That's what I like.
My name is Ty Hildebrandt. That fine gentleman over there, the one, the only, always the incomparable, the native son.
Yeah.
California, Dan Rubenstein. We were at the world famous Troubadour. They let us in the door.
That's true. We're actually a little bit farther apart than we normally are because we're also going to bring other couple people up on stage at a certain point.
We're doing the Clint Eastwood thing. We're talking to the empty chair.
Yeah, we're talking to the chair. I got to tell you right off the bat, and the listening audience won't realize this, but the beautiful and attractive people in attendance will realize this. I didn't intentionally wear a Tulane shirt to troll USC people in LA. I didn't. But then up there, because I have a different shirt, up there I saw, oh, I'm wearing a Tulane shirt. He's like, you know what, I'm sticking with this. I'm going to go with this. I'm gonna lean into it. So, no, it's incredible that we're here. I grew up going to shows here.
I was going to say, you've been to shows here.
It's incredible to see the name of our show, The Solid Verbal, up on the marquee. It's all gravy. I'm so excited to do this, and I'm ready with my good friend Fat Tire.
Fat Tire
Not a
is here.
sponsor? Could be.
Absolutely could be. So, the name of this show, the code name for this show, for people who listen, knows that we've been talking about one true champion.
Yes.
For a couple months now, one true champion. What does that mean? Well, two things happened about a month ago. The first is that the College Football Playoff Selection Committee announced the top four, the four teams that will be competing for the national championship. We obviously know who the final two are. That's the first. The second is that they finally came to an agreement with the Rose Bowl on expanding things to 12 teams starting in 2024.
Yep.
You and I decided, we're going to do it our own way.
Correct.
We're going to expand the playoff in the way that we see fit. We're also not going to just play it off between those four teams. We're going to expand to 12, and we're going to make our own.
We also don't have that capability to put on a tournament of teams. The budget's not there yet. But in the way that we do fantasy things before the season, we are going to find 12 things that we think have best come to define the 2022 season and whittle it down to the one true champion thing, storyline, movement, whatever. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got 12 college football narratives, things that move the needle for us this past season. We're going to put them in brackets. We originally had slides, but my dongle, for lack of better terms.
And you have the easy tie.
Yeah.
Don't talk about your dongle in front of these. Settle.
The dongle didn't work the way it was supposed to.
Okay.
And thank you. So we're going to engage in a little theater of the mind here, talking through
That's cool.
what all of these 12 matchups are. But you can envision a 12-team bracket.
Yeah.
That will be populated.
You can hold up your phone.
I
and
could.
show it to. No, we're not going to do that. Okay. Yes, continue.
So it's a 12-thing bracket of our own creation, and by the end of this thing, maybe we can get some fan participation. We've got some special guests who are going to help us along the way. We plan on naming the one true champion, not Georgia, not TCU.
No,
the one true solid verbal champion of the 2022 season.
Why not do it in front of beautiful, attractive people, right?
We have this sound too. You guys can tell me which one you like better. I stole this one.
Shout out CBS. They didn't license it to us.
It's sort of like a Jurassic Park version of CBS. And then I have...
Two?
Do you like two?
All right, two it is.
Two's a little better?
Yeah.
All right, shall we start with round one?
I would love
Please
to.
put your hands together for round one.
So we've seeded this, right? It's organized in the way any other 12-team bracket would be organized. So the first four seeds have a bye.
First four seeds have a bye. This first round of games is being played. They're home games.
Okay.
Right. So I don't know what that means.
Right.
But our first matchup is a 5-12, which conventionally, for anybody who actually listens to the actual tournament, you pick brackets, you follow it. You know, a 5-12 can be very dangerous.
That's always danger.
The 5 seed in this bracket is Coach Catastrophes.
Oh my God. We're going to have to unpack. Yeah.
And the 12 seed is something that you wanted to call desperately the Big Ten West Sad Mall.
Yes. So I'll unpack that one as well. Everybody is familiar with wherever they're from. There's a good mall and a sad mall, right?
That's right. That's right.
The good mall might be outdoors. There might be a couple department stores that are still busy, something like that. The sad mall is like, wow, people are still buying shoes there?
Yeah.
Not that they're bad shoes, but it's that the employees seem a little bit sad.
No.
And the ground hasn't been cleaned in a bit. And so what we are going to determine is essentially which one of these coaching catastrophes, which is a broad term, and we can go through a number of examples, or was the sad mall that was the Big Ten West. If you remember, late in the season when Northwestern was terrible, they were objectively terrible at football, there were tweets outlining they still have a chance. That's the kind of division it was. And so I don't know if you want to go through some coaches and look at where they might be working in said mall, but I have PJ Fleck at Lady Foot Locker. You didn't ask, but I think it's a natural fit.
Well, the coach catastrophes, I actually wanted to turn that one over to you.
Okay.
Because you took a certain amount of sadistic joy in the plight of one Mario Cristobal this past season.
I was just so familiar, and what a catastrophe it was.
It really was a beautiful catastrophe.
It was because, I'm not going to say I knew it was going to happen. I figured he would have some success at Miami. But the fact that, and something came out in the last couple weeks, that Manny Diaz in his 30-whatever games hit 5 games of 40 points or something like that, and in Mario Cristobal's first year, it was like 9 of them allowing. So look, between Mario Cristobal, between Brent Venables, between Kirk Ferentz, we'll get there. We'll get there. Around the sport, there were some pretty catastrophic coaching situations that, look, it started with, I think, what was the opening shot of the coach? Was it South Dakota State, Iowa?
No, that was...
Was it like, what was the true apex moment? What was the climax? Settle. What was the climax to you? Was it Middle Tennessee, Miami?
Middle Tennessee, Miami, I believe, was a little bit later on in the year.
I know. I understand this.
I think the one for me that really was like, whoa, was Oklahoma, Texas.
Oklahoma, Texas was tough.
49-0. Was that the final?
It was 49-0. And it was a situation Oklahoma didn't have their starting quarterback, so it's somewhat understandable.
We'll get to that one.
But the beauty of that specific catastrophe was for 4 or 5 weeks you watched Oklahoma and you're like, all right, a little scrappy, there's something there. And then the end of the TCU game. And then when you get to the point where you're looking at a box score and there's a number like 1.8 or 2.4 next to QBR or yards per attempt, that's going to be a long weekend on the Oklahoma message boards.
Well, between Miami and Oklahoma, 14 losses between those two first-year head coaches.
Yes. Could have been worse. Continue.
An appreciative crowd here. I appreciate that. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if they do.
No.
And then you mentioned Oklahoma and what their plight was.
Right.
And if we're talking about the Big Ten West sad mall, there was this thing that we joked about on our show called Nebraska-litis.
Nebraska-colitis, like
Nebraska
colitis, yes.
Colitis, you know, it's a very mysterious thing. You could argue that Northwestern was sort of patient zero.
Yes.
They caught the European strain.
Yep, they caught the European strain, the European variant of Nebraska-litis. Yeah.
But there were 7 or 8 games that Nebraska played, and then the week following or the game following for those respective opponents, they lost.
Yes.
I've got Northwestern, Georgia Southern, Oklahoma, Indiana, Purdue, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And by the way, Michigan almost lost.
Correct.
That was that game against Illinois where they won 19-17. So, you know, somebody else can do the math on what percentage of the opponents that was. But playing Nebraska, just having exposure to Nebraska was not a good thing either.
So I'm sure you have a friend, or you and Solid Wife Kate have like a couple friend who are like, they're just kind of downers, and they bring everybody down, and you just feel kind of icky after you leave their place. Sort of like, you know, the Office episode with Michael and Jan, where everybody's like, oh man, this really hurts to watch. And there is something about, like, you go to Lincoln, Nebraska, and you watch how dysfunctional Nebraska got, that it just stays with you. Whatever you call the European variant for Northwestern.
The European strain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, by a show of, well, applause, who would vote for Coach Catastrophes in this matchup? It's Coach Catastrophes against the Big Ten West Sad Mall. Coach Catastrophes?
I think they like the Sad Mall. Whoa. Yeah. It's a Sad Mall crowd.
Sad Mall?
Yeah. Okay, so I have, let's see, I have Pat Fitzgerald at a sad leather store. Does that make sense? Like a Wilson's leather?
Yeah.
I've got Jeff Brom He's running like a massage kiosk.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be there either.
Careful.
Jeff Brom won the Big Ten West, and he was like, this is too sad. I need to go. Who else do we have in the Big Ten West? Obviously, Scott Frost is in like a Hollister or something, Aeropostale.
Yeah. We talked about this at the coffee shop before.
He's got the sad
Hollister.
Puka vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad Puka Scott Frost. I don't know where this is all coming from. Who else do we have in the Big Ten West? We'll get to Kirk Ferentz later. There was something about Wisconsin and Graham Mertz where it was like, we're sticking with him no matter what. We've invested so much in this. I don't know what that is in like the inventory at Hot Dog on a Stick or something like that. Where's that food court that's always has the samples? Like, please take some more Graham Mertz.
Please take some.
We can't get... He's probably a nice guy. That sounds very mean, but like that was the vibe I got from this year's Wisconsin.
So we've got our first upset. We're going to put the 12 through. We planned on putting the 5 through, but we're putting the 12 through.
There is... I can't wait to talk about Brett Bielema's role in the Sad Mall.
That brings us to an 8-9 matchup, Dan.
We're getting some snaps. It's a literal snappy little tune there. Look at this. Oh my God, this feels great.
This is going to be an earworm situation for a lot of these folks. The 8th seed in this bracket is something we called Weirdly Human Alabama.
Yes.
And the 9, this is my favorite one.
Yeah.
The 9 is Dabo Swinney slowly melting.
Yeah. Because the visual immediately... You can kind of visualize him. No, yeah, you can see that.
So why don't we start with Alabama and then we can get to Dabo. It says something about a team when it's a catastrophe to go 10-2. Mm-hmm. When you go 10-2 and that's an abject failure in some sense, I mean, that says a pretty good deal about your program. So they're in a good place, but there was this thing, and we struggled with it all season, trying to pick these Alabama games, especially after we saw the Texas one. After that game in week 2, our thought was that, well, maybe Texas is really good.
Sure. What an incredible loss.
Maybe Texas is just really good. Like, Texas is back, finally.
Yeah.
Texas was
no, not so much. Spoiler alert, yeah.
Alabama was just weirdly human.
Yeah. So are you familiar with, I don't know if it's Us Weekly or In Style, you know the kind of magazine I'm talking about. They have this segment called Stars, They're Just Like Us.
That's right.
Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with this, yes.
They'll show Ben Affleck just tired and sad while smoking a cigarette.
That's right.
Like, well... Or they'll show, I don't know if you've ever, it's the greatest paparazzi picture ever taken. Have you ever seen Jonah Hill and the iced coffee? Has anybody seen this? Do you know what I'm talking about? So it's Jonah Hill holding an iced coffee, but the frame is exactly when he's holding from the lid. And I didn't anticipate going here, by the way, where the iced coffee is falling from the lid, and it's just Jonah Hill. And so you think to yourself, yeah, I've been there. Like, I have bad pores when I go to get a salad, right? There is something about this year's Alabama reminiscent of, sure, my team has been torched by Tennessee. Sure, Brian Kelly has somehow beaten my team late. Sure, Ole Miss almost beat my team with a sloppy performance. That was the vibe of the, like, Stars, They're Just Like Us. Obviously, Ben Affleck is excellent at what he does. But when you show him a little bit paunchy, as we all have been, you're like, Ben, I get you. I feel you. The holidays are tough for all of us.
The interesting thing that I learned about Alabama, and specifically Alabama fans this year, you could say anything you want about Alabama.
Yeah.
It could be as mean-spirited as you can possibly conjure up. No Alabama fans listen to National College Football Podcasts.
No, of course not.
They're so good. They have constructed their own parallel universe.
Yeah.
With their own podcasts and their own websites and their own opinion makers. They don't listen to us. So it was very freeing to be able to talk about weirdly human Alabama once we realized it was a thing.
I don't even think
without any repercussions whatsoever.
I don't think anybody had Alabama takes this year. They were an Alabama plus, and the rest of us had the standard package. Yeah.
So on the Alabama front, speaking of Alabama, and we've talked about this in the show time and time again, but the fact that Alabama has been on this run under Nick Saban has really poisoned the well for a lot of other schools.
Yes.
When it comes to coaches and, you know, trying to build up any kind of national recognition and program building and what have you. Clemson. Clemson thought, a lot of people thought for a good long time, that if Nick Saban leaves, maybe Dabo Swinney would take that job.
Right.
And then this year kind of happened.
Yeah.
And you start to wonder, okay, well, Clemson's had a lot of success, but now they're starting to lose coaches, and players maybe are transferring out. and suddenly people are putting microphones in front of Dabo, asking him social questions, like social issue questions.
That always ends well. Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm not saying it's falling apart, but there is a sense that maybe it is slowly melting.
Yeah, there was the issue of like, who is your actual starting quarterback going to be? And then he said, well, Cade Klubnik's going to play. That was the preseason. And then throughout the season, he said, DJU's our guy. And then they gave up a bajillion yards up to Wake Forest. And he always used to love using was it the Roy bus, the rest of y'all, right?
Yeah.
And that, little old Clemson, there were moments where like, yeah, you are little old Clemson. And it's not going super well. You could see the veins popping a little bit more for Dabo.
I was going to say,
year.
there were more angry shots of Dabo on the sidelines than I'm accustomed to.
Yeah. And the thing is, I'm going to miss Dabo when he's gone. He's not sick, to my knowledge. That was worded and phrased in a weird way. Not to my knowledge. I'm going to miss him when he's gone because there are so many vanilla coaches out there that it's fun to have him in my life because he's so ridiculous.
Dabo Swinney versus
Weirdly Human
Alabama. Are we going for Weirdly Human Alabama?
There's the one Alabama. Continue.
Dabo Swinney.
Dabo. See?
There's two upsets. We have two upsets.
There's so many little things, or in the case of his suit, like really big billowy things about Dabo that I treasure.
We didn't even get to him running down the hill.
No. Oh my God, that's great. Continue.
Speaking of slowly melting. All right. Next first round matchup is a battle of 6 versus 11. The 6th seed is what the fuck, TCU?
Yes. I repeat, what the fuck, TCU?
And 11, the 11th seed, is comically terrible backups.
Yes. Specifically quarterbacks.
This
one's important and personal to you.
It is. I mean,
I hear a Notre Dame.
I hear some laughs. We all know where this is going, folks, right? Oklahoma had a problem with curious backups.
Yeah.
Davis Bevel? Really? Against Texas? They had that, and Oklahoma State had, as I like to call, something called Garrett Rangel.
And
Gunnar Gundy.
Gundy,
Gundy. But I'm sorry, this is a Drew Pine category.
A Drew Pine category.
This is the Drew Pine entrant in our bracket. I was told by a friend, and you remember this, several weeks ago, that Drew Pine is built like me.
Like Ty.
I'm built like a podcaster.
Yes. You're built different-ish. Yeah.
And what kind of amazes me about the whole Drew Pine experience is that he was so bad, he was actually kind of good.
Yeah.
He had a 22-6 touchdown to interception ratio, and they turned him from a really bad backup at the start of the season into what I've come to now say is a quarter bot. In that, he handed the ball off and he threw it to Michael Mayer.
Yeah. He was programmed for a very specific responsibility.
He was like the Terminator in a sense.
Right.
And so they found a way to win 8 games with that. And not only that, but they gave him the confidence to believe that he should be the starter next year, which is why he transferred to Arizona State. Right. Good luck with that.
I had a hypothetical a number of years ago that I was especially proud of, and it was, would you rather wake up out of a dead sleep and you're on stage at the Oscars having to host and you have to put out 15 minutes of content or whatever it is, or would you rather wake up out of a dead sleep and have to sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl? And you have to sing it. You can't run off. And it's difficult, right? I mean, the Super Bowl one's over sooner, but you can be made fun of more by singing terribly. There is something about this group of quarterbacks that, like, they woke up out of a dead sleep and were asked to drive the ball in the Cotton Bowl, because that's what I relate to. That's the number of the throws that these gentlemen, who I'm sure are nice, capable, they're in better shape than I am, they're better football players.
Great grades. Yep.
Absolutely. But there is something like, you're awake, now you have to read cover 3, and Drew Pine is like, I'm throwing it to the tall guy. And I appreciate that because it makes them relatable. So I understand that.
When I heard built like me, I was like, oh boy. TCU, like...
Okay, let's talk TCU.
I feel like we got to put TCU through. They're here. They're in this game.
Yes.
And I remember we did the preview. You guys who listen to the show, you know I've said it time and time again. The preseason quote from Sonny Dykes that I hung my hat on, and I believed in the Sonny Dykes hire. We all thought it was a good hire. It's going to take 18 months. 18 months is what he did. It takes about 18 months till we get to the point where program's stable. We can move this thing forward. You know, we can start building for the future. It took 18 weeks.
Yeah, it was nothing.
18 weeks, and suddenly now lost in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I mean, they were Big 12 championship adjacent.
That's right.
Yeah.
But to do it as quickly as they did, to get here to this game. We'll talk more about TCU at some point here in this, but I feel like we have to put TCU through. We can't have another upset.
I'm not going to rely on the beautiful, attractive people. We're putting TCU through because I have said everything, all the thoughts that I have about Davis Bevel at this point. I am milked dry. Nope. I'm taking that back. I'm bringing that back. I'm disgusted with myself for using that phrase.
So we agree on the TCU for.
I'm pushing TCU through because I don't have anything really that bad to say about TCU. They're an incredible story, and we don't have anything on this list that's incredible other than TCU.
Is anybody in the audience rooting for Georgia? All right. That's great. No, it's TCU is a team that traditionally has not been in this position. They've gotten to this point through playing really, really good football. I have been okay. I have a bit of baggage with guys like Max Duggan and Bo Nix, where this has been the ultimate redemption year. They don't care. They don't know my name. They don't care about me. I was out on Bo Nix from very early on. I was out on Max Duggan from very early on. And for them this year, and there have been a number of guys like this, but for Max Duggan, backup quarterback, TCU, the Frogs, first-year head coach, who like halfway through the season was like, well, he wears cool hoodies. And then now they're here? I mean, that's just incredible to me. Yeah. 7-10. Oh boy, I like this. It's very.
It's a vibe, Ty.
It's very menacing.
Yeah.
Ohio State and Michigan fan freakouts.
Love this.
Versus Kansas has a pulse now?
Question mark. Yeah. So the problem with Kansas here is it was like a mid-October thing, and then it went a little bit sideways. Still a great story. Unbelievable. Having two good quarterbacks.
It was a summer fling, in a sense.
Lance Leipold, it was a summer fling. It was a half-season story, but it came to an end. I think they're improving. It's a terrific story. I always like it when these completely down-and-out programs make a move, right? That charge towards mediocrity. Sure. But we've got like a very quiet woo in the front row. Charge to mediocrity. Woo! But there is something about the existential crises that Michigan and Ohio State fans feel. Well, first of all, every week. But at this point of the season, Ohio State's out of it. They lost to Michigan. You got to fire Ryan Day. You have to redo everything as a 12-1, 11-1 program, whatever. And then Michigan getting to the point, beating Ohio State again. And then... well, the NCAA has issues with free burgers.
Free burgers.
And Jim Harbaugh might go to the NFL. Do you know where those rumors are coming from? I think they might be coming from inside the house. That might be Jim Harbaugh saying, I've heard Jim Harbaugh, they got offered. Like, do they, like, oh, no, this is Steve Harbaugh. That's what I heard. That's where the call is coming from. So there is something that Michigan fans and Ohio State fans can't have nice things for very long.
No. The Kansas story was fun, though. I mean,
yes, it was incredible.
Maybe it was short-lived, but they did go 5-0 to start the season. They weaseled their way. Negative connotation, but they snaked their way, let's say.
Okay, thank you.
Up into the top 20. Almost beat TCU, who we just talked about, who's playing in this game in 48 hours. So the fact that they got to 6 wins at all this season is a huge accomplishment, given the fact that neither of the two previous coaches got to 6 wins in their entire arc at Kansas.
The thing is that it's unfortunate. It puts a lot of pressure on like Pat Fitzgerald, right? Like if Kansas can do it, if Steve could lose 145 pounds and has a 6-pack now, why can't you, Carl? I don't know where I'm going with this, but it does put a lot of pressure on other people. I think the Kansas thing is a great story. I think I'm putting through Ohio State and Michigan because there's more meat on that bone.
There's a little bit more meat on that bone, and plus both Ohio State and Michigan were they had more of an impact on the arc of college football this season. Both made the playoff.
I agree.
So it's hard not to. We put TCU through. It's only fair that we would put Ohio State and Michigan through. It will get tougher in the next round, though. Just looking ahead at this bracket. Recognition, the folks out there don't have the benefit of seeing the bracket, but we will get this. So we're going to go Ohio State.
We're going Ohio State and Michigan existential crises.
Let's go to the quarterfinals.
I like that.
I played the other one that time. Did you guys catch that? No one heard. Boo! No one heard that.
Should we bring a warm bottom to this seat? Is that what we should do at this point?
We can if you want to.
I would love to. We've got a couple of quarterfinal matchups here. So we've got a 1 and 4 seed entering the fray, right?
That's correct. We've got
to
1, 2, 3, and 4.
To take on, what, a 12 seed in the sad Big Ten West Mall.
That's right.
And then the 9 seed Dabo slowly melting. An overwhelming snap choice.
Should we talk about TCU? Should we talk about TCU, though?
Do you want to talk about TCU first?
Why don't we talk about TCU?
Okay, that's fine.
And we've got a special guest to help us do that.
All right. So, a 9-year, 10-year? Yell it out. 11? 11-year NFL veteran and former starting star tackle for the TCU Horned Frogs, Marshall Newhouse. Come to the stage. Just a bunch of burly big dudes on stage.
There's a lot of meat up here.
A lot of meat. Okay. So I'm going to present the matchup with my beer mustache. We have a 6 seed in, what the fuck, TCU? Where the hell did this come from? Against...
Excuse me, sir. We are a Christian university.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Do you know that I asked, and I don't know who this is going to offend, but I'm almost a half a beer in.
It's okay.
I've said to multiple people, it's like, well, TCU, the C is Christian. They're like, it's just a frat place. It's just a frat place.
It is loosely affiliated with the Christ Disciple or something like that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Or something like that,
something
says
like that.
The proud TCU alum.
Just to show you the importance of the C.
Yeah,
so.
if you want that, go to Baylor or SMU. That was the kind of idea I got from. So TCU, the Frogs are in this. But they are trying to prove themselves to be more important to the 2022 arc than... I don't know if you have a sound for this or anything, Ty. That's fine. I don't know.
Thank you. You couldn't have got Round Ball Rock for me?
Nah.
Oh, man, that would have been nice.
I can work on it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
USC and UCLA getting the hell out of the Pac-12. See? That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
So which has been... So I just want to talk about TCU. There's no way you expected this.
No, not at all. I mean, people were still, processing having to let go of a guy whose statue is on the way into the office for the coaching staff.
Yeah.
And Gary Patterson. So, yeah, there's no way you could have predicted this. And then subsequently, the pundits put us at 7th in the Big 12.
I appreciated that.
Which at different
Wild,
times,
right?
Yeah.
Wild.
At different times this year, people, have lauded its depth or its lack of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, there's no way you could have known.
When did you know? Like, I think they're actually something.
It was Oklahoma. I mean, I was at the game. I did a pregame show this year, and you're kind of highlighting the players. I met a few of the newer guys, and we're like, all right, this is gonna be a tough game. Oklahoma, we've given them, challenges for 3 quarters most of the years in the last 5 or so years.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the first quarter, we break like 2 or 3 long plays, and Oklahoma looks like disheveled on the sideline. I'm like, that's something I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not since 2005. And then by that game, I'm like, we just stomped a hole in their forehead. Mm-hmm. This might be for real. So, yeah, and then the run after that. But, yeah, it was the Oklahoma game.
And Monday night, if we were to give you, it looks like you have your honesty juice right in front of you. The ongoing question is like, well, what would it take for TCU? Like, first of all, they're a really good team, and they've beaten good teams.
Sure.
Are you going into this in the way that I think TCU is, which is like, it's free money. Nobody expected us to be here. Let's just play loose and see what happens. Or are you of the mind, if ABC goes in a specific way, this is a real thing?
It's very real. I think, TCU fans are pretty realistic fans. We've been kind of the doormat for a long time. We're a small school. There weren't a lot of expectations. They're there now, but we were realistic before Michigan. Mm-hmm. I said before the game, we need a couple things to go our way. Turnovers, big plays. Who knew that would mean 2 pick sixes and a 75-yard touchdown. But, yeah, I was very honest about Michigan, and I believe it's similar to this. We got to win the turnover battle. There's just no way a Georgia program that's accumulated 5-star athletes for 6-7 years, there's just no way to beat them at their own game. So things have to go our way a little bit. But if we do the off the bus test, there's a tight end at TCU who barely gets used who's 6'7", 240. In my time there, that just wasn't real. There's 2 tackles who were 6'.
You were a Mountain West athlete, to be clear. Yeah.
I am honest now that if I were to try to get recruited,
Ty's taking that. I'm like, I'm insulting him.
No, I know.
No, but it's not that long ago.
I'm going to kick Dan's ass later. It's okay.
Yeah.
Registered.
I have it coming.
The backhanded compliment, registered. No, like, I probably wouldn't get recruited there now. I'm a shorter tackle, but the athletes they have now, they're big. And I spoke to this about this antiquated notion that TCU is too small. 15 years ago, we were too small. That's just not the case anymore. So that was part of the Michigan lead up. And so, yeah, we stole a couple possessions. And Max played okay. He had 2 picks that bounced off receivers' hands.
Yep.
And then he threw for a little under 50%. He can't do that. Those receivers can't drop those balls. And so it's there. I believe it's there. And I also believe Georgia's not going to underestimate us, and it's going to be a dogfight. So the house money thing, I know how hard it is to win anything, any championship. So acting like we're just going to go on this run and maybe get back here, there's too much luck. There's too much craziness that could happen to assume that no matter how good you recruit, that this could happen again. So why not, shoot your shot now?
It does feel like they're on a hell of a run at the craps table, though.
Sure.
And that makes them tricky to bet against.
Yeah.
You could bet Georgia, and both Dan and I picked Georgia.
Speak for yourself, Ty. Marshall and I.
You're on thin ice.
Marshall and I believe, Ty.
You're saying we're the degenerate in the corner with a cigarette and empty vodka sodas just on a heater right now?
I don't like. I could pick Georgia, and I understand all the reasons why it makes sense. I don't feel good about it.
Yeah.
I don't feel good about it. I don't want them. I want TCU to win, but
Sure.
I don't feel good about it because of the run that TCU's been on, and that feeling of not having anything to lose can be really dangerous.
And I'm like, I couldn't gamble, so I'm new to it, but just the idea and the machinations. 13 points is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a big number.
It's a big number.
For a quick strike offense that has been in weird situations all year.
Down
it's
to 12 now.
By the way, has there ever been, in a hypothetical world in which Georgia wins the national championship, will there ever be a happier group of fans to lose in the national championship? Not that TCU is happy just to be here. We're just like, whatever. We were in the national championship game.
No.
Yeah, who cares?
No. We're streaking down the street and our pants are around our ankles.
Exactly.
We're having a good time.
I'm sorry.
Continue.
So here is the matchup that we brought you up here, beyond, of course, the game preview and your insight into TCU. But the matchup we've got here is between TCU and this incredible run and what otherwise would be the biggest story in college football, the notion that both USC and UCLA and LA as a whole is now a Big Ten town, Dan?
True.
I kind of feel like that's the bigger thing that we should
it's disrespect towards Santa Monica City College, but continue.
I just kind of feel like that's a bigger, more important thing that we talk more about and that everybody got a little bit more into than...
And the idea of realignment also affects TCU with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, because TCU, again, Big 12 championship adjacent, TCU is in a position to go to the playoff probably more often. If Oklahoma's fully weaponized, that's certainly a roadblock. And with, all due respect to Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, and Houston, the road is a lot better for TCU right now with Oklahoma leaving, should they get back to where they've been. So I think it's USC and UCLA just because it sort of changes the trajectory of how we look at the sport, that it's become like a Big Ten SEC thing at this point. But man, USC fans and UCLA fans going to State College, do you want to speak specifically about how hard it is, not just to get there, but to exist there?
There is not nonstop service from LAX to State College, no.
It's tricky.
Is there a slighter word than remote? It's so hard to get there.
It's a long van ride from Pittsburgh or Philly for most fans. You can fly into University Park, but most of the laymen can't. It's a tough place to get to otherwise.
Yeah, USC and UCLA firebombing a conference to chase money. All due respect to, I have a lot of USC friends, UCLA friend. One. I think there's not that many of them. If you've ever seen there is, and I'm sure there are a couple of examples of stadiums that really pop in empty ways. The Rose Bowl is special because we all love the Rose Bowl, right? We love the game itself. But there's something about, like, I'm pretty sure 2/3 of the stadium are empty. 2/3 of the seats are empty for a UCLA game, and the Big 12 is, we want you. And so that's funny to me that there is, maybe Iowa fans will travel, maybe Minnesota fans will travel, but it's still going to be tricky. There's something about an empty Rose Bowl that, I don't know, it just feels like home being from here.
Does anybody object to us putting USC and UCLA through?
Yes.
Yeah, other than you, Marshall.
Of course.
By the way, there was something, I don't know, a few days ago after TCU beat Michigan, somebody from the TCU athletic department or something like radio, they said something like, all these people are acting surprised about TCU, but we knew the whole time. Bullshit. You guys needed to sprint out in unison to kick a field goal against Baylor to get here. We knew the whole time. I'm positive that
Dan,
Marshall...
that's called a bazooka kick, and we practice it every Thursday.
I'm positive you watched the end of that game with your arms crossed like, nope, not even close.
I was too busy. I was down the sideline trolling the Baylor student section.
Well, that's fun.
Beautiful.
That's fun.
Beautiful.
That's what you're legally supposed to be doing as a TCU person, yeah.
Before we let you go, do you have a prediction while you're up here?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing the show, and so I'm like, I've got my Homer shirt on all the time. But I truly believe it with a couple, bounces our way, like we're in the game. But it feels like a one-score Georgia win. But I think there's a chance, like late in the fourth quarter, there's a game-turning drive for TCU or Georgia that will either have TCU there to win, or they'll pull away. But I mean, it's gonna be a closer game. It'll be very well contested.
Georgia could cover, and it could still be a hell of a game.
Absolutely, yeah.
So any given Monday night, specifically built for TV audiences, anything could happen. Yeah.
Put your hands together for Marshall Newhouse.
Thank you. Am I free?
You're free.
Can I leave? Okay.
Go be our biggest fan.
Thank you.
Do you want to keep it going with large humans in this chair?
We can.
We can? That's not a vote of confidence.
Let's do it. We've got another guest.
We have another guest, another large human. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Gojo Show. You've seen him on ESPN. You've seen him on... He might be on Twitter 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mike Golic Jr.
I just want to say thank you for not reading my football resume after Marshall's.
You have a hell of a Wikipedia page, by the way. He is the only professional, semi-professional football player. You played in Brooklyn, New York, professionally.
Yes, I played in the Brooklyn Cyclones minor league baseball park on Coney Island. I rode a legit yellow school bus to professional football practice. But I did make the all-star team in the FXFL and didn't get paid for the last 3 weeks.
Is that true?
Yes, So, at some point, it's not 30 for 30 worthy at all, but someone will do like a small YouTube short on what happened that fall. Where I ate at the same Spanish restaurant, worked out at the same LA Fitness, and went bowling 3 nights a week, living in a Holiday Inn Express on Staten Island for 3 months.
You just brought the room down.
Yeah, no, I was saying it was dark times, man. It was dark times. Anyway, happy to be here, guys. The Troubadour, great joint.
On to brass tacks, Mike. We've got a compelling matchup here between a number 9 seed, otherwise known as Dabo Swinney, slowly melting, and the number 1 overall seed, which we're referring to as transfer portal fucking chaos.
Whoa, language, Tyke. Whoa.
Chaos. Chaos.
We're actually a Catholic institution.
Yeah,
we
that's
care
true.
about the God stuff.
So everybody knows about the Dabo thing. We just talked about that. Speaking of the God, the NIL thing, we could talk about that quote in due time. But I'm curious from your perspective as a former college athlete, how you feel about the transfer portal chaos, because I'm sure you've seen the numbers. Over 1,000 people entered their name into the transfer portal. Some have pulled their names out. Some have pulled their names out and then put them back in. It
Settle.
is true.
Careful, we just got done with the milk and stuff.
I keep thinking of the old ESPN Y2K commercial where they count down 3, 2, 1. You hear the alarms going off.
Follow me to freedom.
And Charlie Steiner's doing Braveheart.
Yeah, he's playing for Tulsa now. Charlie Steiner, congratulations. Yeah.
So where are you at with the transfer portal and all this chaos we've seen?
Well, and especially what you guys brought up is its outsized impact on the world of college football. We just got through, I believe, the last of the major transfer portal quarterback dominoes to follow, with Brennan Armstrong following his former offensive coordinator, Brandon and I, to NC State. But we saw the impact it had on USC this year. We saw the impact that it's had on Ole Miss since Lane Kiffin got there. It's got tangible impact that we've seen almost immediately on the field for some big programs. And it's the easiest sports talk gasbag subject on earth. You can get Stephen A. Smith talking about that.
Yeah.
If Stephen A. Smith is talking about college football, that tends to mean whatever the subject is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. I mean, the other interesting thing about this matchup is that Dabo Swinney versus the transfer portal is also a real life matchup.
It's a thing.
That's been ongoing, right?
Clemson fans all just slowly dying, as you said.
Yeah, it's true.
I was
Continue.
going to say, it just doesn't seem like Dabo's got a handle on that situation.
No, not at all. Here's my question for Mike, though. With the transfer portal stuff, you were pretty locked in on Notre Dame, obviously. A legacy, and you love, look, you're wearing a Notre Dame little... Is that a jacket or is that it's a patch? No, it's just a jacket.
It's just a jacket, yeah.
It's just a jacket. Yeah, I'm learning things as we go. You would have not entertained the idea, I presume, of leaving Notre Dame.
I thought briefly about it going into my last year just because I hadn't played a bunch, but it was a lot harder decision. I was obviously, a legacy player there,
right,
and all that good stuff. So would have been a lot harder than it seems to be now, which that part is wild to me, and I'm sure Marshall could speak to this too. The thought of uprooting everything that you've done as frequently as some players have seems incredibly off-putting. Like they do have to think about it a lot more like a business than we ever did.
Interesting. Okay, so when you look at this, does it like Ty is all in on the transfer portal? Ty loves. I mean, look, Ty's a professional talker now, so it gives us fodder all year long. Like, okay, this quarterback's going here, or this new coach just brought in 40 new players or whatever from the portal. Lane Kiffin's the portal king. Do you enjoy it in that way, or you're like, that's kind of a bummer because there is something nice about like you going somewhere with 4 years and you're making all these like lifelong friends? What are you mixed on it? Do you understand it? But does it? Where are you with it?
So I don't get as inundated with it overall necessarily because trying to keep track of each and every one that jumps into the portal is an impossible task. I'm like, skip the labor, show me the baby, tell me where the good guys end up, and we'll be good with all that. I'm a fan of it because it allows more teams to get better quickly, which I think as a college football fan helps in an era we're about to expand the playoff. And I think it also gives players recourse against a system that's traditionally landlocked them, where now you've got guys that if their coach decides to up and leave after the first signing day, have the ability to get out. If the bill of goods they were sold isn't the one that they get when they get on campus, like coaches have to tell you the truth now.
Right.
They didn't always have to tell you the truth before in those recruiting meetings because you were, whatever a star prospect, they could make you feel all the things you wanted to feel, and then you got on campus and you were theirs, and it was really hard to get out of that. And so I like in a sport where the players do not yet have a union that they've got some way to impact their future in a 4 or 5 year window.
There's also the interesting dynamic of recruiting your current players. Like you probably wouldn't have hated for your offensive line coach in meetings be like, hey, by the way, Mike, you mean a ton to us and we love having you here. You'd be like, hey, thanks.
Yeah, it's created such an interesting dynamic where, yes, it feels like now they've still got to be nice to you when you get on campus. So maybe it eliminates you getting 5 a.m. punishment workouts for 2 weeks straight after a very lame minor intoxication arrest. That is off my record now.
Hypothetically, he could be talking about anybody.
Not going to point any elbows here. But no, I think I had an interesting conversation last year doing a North Carolina game with Mac Brown, and obviously anyone who's ever lost a game to North Carolina has had a very long conversation with Mac Brown in midfield, way longer at a handshake than they want to. But it was interesting hearing him talk about that because I think it changes the way some of these coaches have to operate if they're smart, which is word of mouth has always been the best recruiting device. Players talk, now more than ever. And he said, if a guy doesn't think the best opportunity for him is here, we want to help get him to where he thinks that was the promise we made him recruiting. And listen, he's talking to the media, he's selling us the right stuff. But that's the point, is if that's the let's say, perception of you that's out there, and then that impacts players, and you show that on a day-to-day basis, players are going to buy what you're selling, and that to me is the biggest thing. If you're truthful in the way you build your program, you're not going to have to do as much recruiting.
Right. By the way, just as an aside, Mac Brown, an all-time elite first name rememberer.
Yeah. Remembers everybody's name.
So you got like the Doc Rivers in the NBA,
Yeah.
but he does do something where like a media member will ask him a question. He'll say like, "Great question, Derek," and Derek will say, "That was a great question. Thanks, Mac."
It's why if these coaches ever have a chance, go do the media thing for a year.
Yeah.
Because you learn how easy it is to get us to all eat out of the palm of your hand.
They're such marks. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. We don't take much.
What
Just feed
Scott
us
Frost
nice
has done at Hollister, he can head right over
No.
to the booth somewhere. Right? So I think we got to put the portal through. I think portal.
We're putting the
chaos is
portal
much more
through.
of a, I love the Dabo slowly melting. I love that.
It is a
That's
great
It's my favorite
visual.
one.
The
But
name, image, and likeness of God.
that's right.
I'm gonna
The
miss
quote,
that in this
I have the
bracket.
quote.
Oh my
We built
God.
this program on NIL. We really did, Sweeney said. It's probably different than what you're thinking, though. We built this program in God's name, image, and likeness. Thank you, Dabo.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Here's
No
my
disrespect
question.
to God.
I mean,
That was a weird quote.
Trevor Lawrence does look like the white god they put up in my Catholic
That's-
high school.
So, let that sink in. Okay. There's something about Dabo where it seems like he's going to coach Clemson forever, right? That's his thing. He's going to be the Clemson whatever. But at some point he's going to retire, and I don't know, like he'll have speaking circuit. The only other thing that I could think about for Dabo after he leaves is because of the way he speaks, the name, image, and likeness of God. That's how there's going to be something like, I'm Dabo Sweeney, and I know a little bit about gold, which is why I'm here to tell you a little bit about gold, right? There is going to be, like, you'll be watching something with an elder relative, and Dabo will appear on your screen, like, as the next, like, I don't know who's doing it now, Tom Selleck? Like, Dabo is going to fit in so smoothly in that world.
I'm so excited for, and I guess it's not going to be my grandparents anymore. This will be like my dad, or I guess not my dad maybe specifically because he would know this, but somebody's dad who becomes a grandpa is going to be like, did you know this nice gold man used to coach that football team?
Who knew?
The Carolinas?
It's going to be such an easy transition, and we are all going to see it coming now. Yeah.
Put your hands together for Mike Golic Jr. Thank you, sir.
Wait, before you go, do you want to place any of the Big Ten West coaches in a sad mall store?
Ooh, okay.
So I guess Luke Fickell doesn't count. We're going to have to go Paul Christ because he was the one who was the head coach for a time this year. You've got Brett Bielema. You've got Kirk Ferentz. Who am I missing from the Big Ten West? You've got Pat Fitzgerald.
Oh.
And PJ Fleck, yeah.
Brett Bielema was recently fired from the Cinnabon as the night manager because he was stealing them.
Low hanging, but accurate.
Hey,
yeah.
I am what I am.
Yep. Thank you very much. Mike Golic Jr.
Our Cinderella from round one, the Big Ten West sad mall against a very strong number 4 seed Jimbo Fisher's buyout.
Yes. Can afford the whole damn mall.
$85 million is the buyout for those playing along at home. This is the kind of topic that you draft for a dynasty fantasy league.
Yes, of course.
Because he signed the contract 5 years ago. He re-upped the contract 2 years ago now, 2021. And we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
It was the contract that changed college football coaching forever.
Yeah.
Because I remember it was 10 years, $75 million. 10 years, what? It was a big talking point for a while. It's more of a talking point now, but not for the reasons we thought when he signed the contract. It could be because A&M did not score 30 points against a Power 5 opponent until the last week of the season.
That'll happen. That'll happen. Yeah.
Last week of the season, Dan.
Yes. So $85 million is a lot of money, but also shout out to the guy for discovering the greatest retirement plan in the sport, Texas A&M's coaching job. There's nothing better. There's nothing like, can you imagine the coaches that are like been on the line with their agents to say, look, at some point, just get me in there, right? Like, you know, when this is all said and done, Lincoln Riley is going to be the head coach at Texas A&M. No! I'm going to walk you through the process. Lincoln Riley's going to take an NFL job in 2024. It's going to go pretty well and then poorly, and then he's going to end up in College Station, Texas. That's just a quick little spoiler alert for the Lincoln Riley trajectory here. He's gonna be a very wealthy man.
The Jimbo buyout, I think I'm just sort of transfixed at how much we talked about it this year. We didn't expect to, I think, is what made it so notable in our world. The Big Ten West sad mall, though, is it's teeming with coaches, with bad programs. I mean, we didn't even talk about Kirk Ferentz.
No.
Let's take a second. Let's take a knee to talk about Kirk Ferentz.
Let's take that knee.
Late stage Kirk Ferentz at this point. So we talk about half teams on the show all the time. By the numbers that we look at, 120th in offense.
Well, yeah.
First in defense. I cannot remember a disparity that large since we've been doing the show. Maybe somebody else can, but 120 to 1 is a pretty big deal. In a vacuum, that's not that big of a story, but the fact that Iowa's been there before and the fact that Iowa sought to try and solve the problem by saying, hey, Brian, you know something about electrical work, don't you?
Right.
Maybe give this a shot. Like, it costs money to do a fixer-upper of this magnitude.
It's unimaginable how bad Iowa's offense got. They were never great on offense. The thing that I specifically love is that there is an obvious conflict of interest to the point where Brian Ferentz doesn't report to his father, the head coach, and that it's other people deciding his job performance. It was so bad to watch Iowa. But again, I treasure it. I treasure the Big Ten West. I treasure how bad it got. I treasure the fact that their best offensive coordinator was their defensive coordinator in Phil Parker. That's pretty great. This was Iowa's incompetence was so creative and novel. I celebrate it. It was so incompetent that it was the best.
And they made it work.
To
an extent.
Sure.
They made it 2 and won a bowl game.
That's true. They shut out a very sad Kentucky team.
Speaking of sad malls.
Right.
So I still feel like, despite the fact that the Big Ten West sad mall is a fun thing to say.
Well, here's the question. Do you think it's more difficult to be truly terrible at Iowa on offense, given that defense? Or is it more difficult to screw up on the level of Texas A&M with the talent of the Aggies? The SEC West wasn't incredible this year.
What do you think Kirk Ferentz would do with the roster in College Station?
Oh my God, they would all be transferring.
If they switch spots,
right?
What would happen?
Punt. It'd be a lot of punting. No, nothing terribly different. No, it's just he's much more expensive, Jimbo.
He's much more expensive. Jimbo Fisher's buyout goes through.
I think it's
so. This is where the 12 seeds run.
I also like that you have to pay attention to oil futures to gauge whether or not it's realistic to get rid. Like there are things afoot that have to happen. Okay. We're gonna have to explain the snaps to the at-home audio audience.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to pump these mics up a little bit so that we can pick it up. Our 2 versus 7 matchup. We already talked about the Ohio State and Michigan freakouts. Tough matchup here going up against NIL madness.
Yes.
You and I, NIL, boo.
Yes, money.
You and I talked about the possibility, the weirdest possible ways that NIL could be applied. And I believe at the coffee shop before this, our conclusion was JT Daniels accepting money from the Qataris to play in an offshoot league.
So
I believe that was what we came up with.
Here is my pitch. My pitch. Maybe a soft pitch in the shadow of Mike Golic Jr. talking about not getting paid to play in the, I think it's the FXFL. Okay, it's almost the XFL. It's the FXFL. That was their commercial on the side of a bus. I think it is worthwhile in that NBA players, when it's not working out for them in the NBA, they can retire, they can coach, they can go sit and be the 14th man and be that like pseudo, I don't know how familiar you are with the NBA, but like Udonis Haslem has been on the Miami Heat and hasn't played meaningful minutes since like 2006. And that's great.
He's a good locker room guy. He's a glue guy.
He's a glue guy. He's a culture guy.
Sure.
But a lot of these guys who still have some life in their legs in the NBA, they'll go to China, right? And they'll cash in. Like Dwight Howard's averaging 47 points for the Beijing Ducks. All I'm saying is I want an NIL option from some possibly problematic state. But I'm saying, and I'm not mocking problematic states. They are problematic. But what I'm saying is I want guys who just can't find that home, right? That JT Daniels, that whoever that has transferred a couple of times down on their luck, I want them to go be a god in the Philippines. That's all I want. Like, I want to hear about somebody I've forgotten about. Like, in 4 years, I want to hear about DJU making $140 million in Sri Lanka. That's all I want for these guys. Look, it's not going to work out as a college football player stateside, but for whatever reason, it's really worked out for them in Taipei.
I sat jaw agape earlier when we looked up some of these Chinese basketball stats.
Oh, yeah, it's incredible.
Tyler Hansbrough 2 years ago,
yeah.
He's like 38 years old at this point, was averaging 33 points a game.
Yes. So this has gone off the rails, but there is something kind of fun about NIL because we don't know anything, right? We don't know the accurate numbers. We hear about quarterbacks. We hear about, schools like Tennessee or now recently UCLA. Congratulations. Yeah, exactly. And you hear about like Miami and Oregon, right? They've got this like one big booster. And the funny like line behind the scenes with Oregon is like, we got to win before Phil goes. He's 84. We got to make this work. And he's just throwing money into the fire. There is something great about that, it's the LifeLock, whatever, John Ruiz at Miami. Like, we shouldn't know these guys' names, but now it's sort of in the light a little bit, and they're paying players what the market deems them to be worth. There's something wonderful and mysterious about it.
Yeah, now all the under the table stuff is above the table.
Some of it is, yeah.
And it's like, I can only imagine the first big party after they got rid of prohibition.
Yeah.
And nobody knows what to do. Everybody's just like, what do I do with this? Here
it's
we
true.
are.
And what happens now is you'll hear recruits saying, well, I could have gotten more to go to this school, but I am a man of integrity and I'm going to Alabama or whatever for less money. It's great. It's wonderful. It's a new element to things. And we had that period of time where not recruits, but active players were doing commercials, and they still are. Like, you had the Nebraska DB, DeColdis Crawford. It was wonderful. The air conditioning commercial, excuse me. But now the charade is kind of fading into the background a little bit, and it's just guys getting paid, which I'm great with.
I love it. So NIL clearly has to go through. It has to go through.
I think so.
It's been such a big story. We have to put it through. We're in favor of it. You're in favor of it. We're going to put NIL through.
That's over what? Ohio State?
Over Ohio State and Michigan freakouts. The one thing I did want to bring up on that note, and it really doesn't fit in neatly to any of the things that we're talking about here. I just wanted to read this quote from Jim Harbaugh. Quote, "As I stated in December, while no one knows what the future holds, I expect that I will be enthusiastically coaching at Michigan in 2023.
Who among us?
I expect I will be enthusiastically married." What?
Yeah.
What kind of a quote is that?
Are you saying Jim Harbaugh's firmware needs to be updated?
Maybe.
Like, he's a chat. What is the app?
Chat GPT.
He's a Chat GPT coach.
There's a little bit of.
So that is, what is it? An AI app? I don't know. I have to explain these jokes sometimes. Jim Harbaugh is.
I joked a long time ago that Jim Harbaugh is what happens when you teach human emotion to a robot.
Yeah.
And I stand by that. He's a great coach.
Yeah.
But this is what you get.
Yeah. I don't recall those hamburgers. Yeah. Isn't that what he's in trouble for? Does not compute.
NIL goes through.
Hey.
That brings us to the semifinals.
All right, here it is. The Final Four.
Final Four. Straight chalk, in a sense. Had some earlier round upsets, but just like the real March Madness, we get down to the top four. We've got Jimbo Fisher's buyout against transfer portal chaos, Stan.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big one. This is a big one here.
Well, again, these are two that are linked inextricably, because if you followed what Texas A&M players are doing, they're getting the hell out, right? So I think it's probably portal chaos because it affects more teams, and it's something that looms over the sport, largely in a positive way. But you never know who is coming, who is going, whatever. We know Jimbo Fisher's going to leave Texas A&M. We don't know if it's this year. We know it's probably going to happen the next couple of years.
Yeah.
I think Bobby Petrino is a nice agent of chaos to speed things up.
Nice catalyst, right?
If you wanted to speed up the process and perhaps use the term for cause, maybe bring in Bobby Petrino to do some dirty work. Am I implying that Bobby Petrino is a double agent? That wouldn't be fair. Yes, I am. I am absolutely implying Bobby Petrino has been hired for a very specific reason.
Yeah, I think the sheer magnitude of the portal this season, the fact that we had so many names going in, and the fact that, granted, we'll talk about NIL here momentarily, but all the tampering that we know happened that nobody talks about, and how it's inextricably linked to NIL. And it's like, there is definitely a Wild West quality to the portal. And what I find amusing about it is that it's always the coaches that are losing the transfers that try to take the moral high ground. Pat Narduzzi.
Oh my God, Pat's the best.
Pat Narduzzi, as I've said before, doesn't care. He doesn't give any Fs. I won't say the word.
Right.
At this point, Pat Narduzzi is like ready to speak on any and everybody who wants to hear it.
I would pay $5 a month for Pat Narduzzi's Substack. I would now sign me up. I'd probably pay $12 to $20 a month if Pat Narduzzi was like, here is all of the dirty laundry. I'm totally in for that Substack, Ty. Yeah, you're absolutely right, though.
It's got to be the portal, right? We got to put the #1 overall seed through.
I'm putting the portal through over Jimbo.
What do you guys think? Would you go Jimbo? Would you go portal?
But yeah, it's portal.
Portal. Yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah, I think life is too grand out here to be concerned with Jimbo Fisher.
All right. That brings us to NIL madness, which we just talked about, versus something that on our slides before we had labeled as USC later. And the reason we left UCLA off, again, is because you said no one gives a shit.
It's real tough. It's real tough to find UCLA people. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, okay, we have the two vans.
All right.
Nobody can see them. All right, so we've got three UCLA people here.
Here is why I think we need to pick NIL.
Yeah.
Because USC and UCLA will remain profitable for whatever conference they go into next. And that will pay dividends well into the future. There will come a point in time where folks look at NIL and they say, we paid what for a freshman quarterback?
Yeah.
The ROI will eventually catch up to the people paying this money.
Sure.
I am here for that story.
Do you remember that people with a ton of money just love spending money and they spend it on all sorts of crazy things? I think you're underestimating that a little bit.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. So
are you thinking, maybe it's your Southern California bias showing, I don't know.
Right.
Are you thinking maybe USC and UCLA is probably the bigger, more impactful story from this college football season? Maybe the one true champion.
As representatives of realignment, yes. I don't think USC and UCLA resonate, perhaps. I mean, USC resonates, right? They have the Heisman Trophy winner. It's a bigger program, whatever. All due respect to UCLA. I grew up a UCLA fan down here. I know what it's like to have nobody recognize who you are. And your team. I miss Cade McNown. There is something about the shifting winds of the sport that USC and UCLA represent. And all of a sudden you have Big 12 and Pac-12 people yelling at each other online over TV ratings. It's awful. It's truly bad. And so because that has permeated the sport, and Texas and Oklahoma leaving the sport, and by the way, as an aside, it will be very fun for Oklahoma to take on Lincoln Riley and Texas A&M in a few years. I am just... It's his destiny. Do you not understand this? I don't know if it's an off-season story. I mean, realignment sort of comes and goes. I don't know how much it's actually going to change the college football experience because teams aren't going away. The thing it'll change if teams like Oregon State and Washington State become like Mountain West teams. That's a big change, and that's a worthwhile thing to talk about. But you're saying NIL madness? I think NIL is going to have a bigger grip on the sport.
But we're in Los Angeles.
We're in Los Angeles.
We're in Los Angeles,
yeah.
Which, who are we going with here? We going USC? The USC guy, of course, said USC.
We're going SC, UCLA.
SC?
Wait, hold on. Are you happy about being a Big Ten program? Are you making any money off of it? Yeah, so that's the thing. That's the tough thing. I'll go USC, UCLA just because it's... I was going NIL, but people here said USC, UCLA, and I'm a prisoner to these attractive people. So,
all right, the 3 is going through.
Yes.
Let's decide our one true champion, Dan.
Okay, let's do it.
It is a big-time matchup. It is USC, UCLA leaving the Pac-12, going east, east to the Big Ten, versus transfer portal chaos.
Yeah.
This is a big one. Who's favored and who do you got?
I think I'm going portal chaos because there is something that there will be contracts drawn up with USC and UCLA leaving, when they're going, what the travel looks like, what the schedules look like, what the TV listings look like. With the portal, there's nothing. Like, you can leave once for free and then you're a grad transfer and you can leave again. But the tampering stuff, which, I mean, is wonderful. And I just hope we get more stories about tampering. Like I said, I'm going to subscribe to Pat Narduzzi's eventual Substack. I think that's what it is. I think the movement in the sport, I mean, these are both representative of movement in the sport, but I think it is the portal stuff that teams can get so much better so quickly, or teams can plug holes, or teams can become deeper, that the USC UCLA thing I think is more of a bummer, but maybe I'm a biased Oregon fan there. Whereas I think the portal thing, I like chaos in the sport. I like the unpredictable. I like the novelty. So my bias says portal chaos.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about this, much like the Dabo Sweeney versus the transfer portal that we had earlier on in this bracket,
Dabo's melting.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, outside of the game that we've got on Monday, outside of the playoff and some of the stories that came as a result of bowl season, you could argue that the USC and UCLA thing versus the transfer portal sort of defined the season even before it started.
True.
Right? So this is a very representative matchup of where college football is at.
But how much did we talk about it as a collective? I mean, obviously it was talked about here, but like during the season, were there a lot of conversations about like what the Big Ten will be in 2025 or whatever?
It was definitely the subject of many a comment that we got on YouTube that started with kids these days.
Sure, absolutely.
Kids these days.
Yeah.
Right? Or the networks are running college football. Like
administrators these days. Yeah.
Every cynical online, extremely online college football fan had a little something to sink their teeth into with USC and UCLA leaving, as well as the transfer portal and the chaos.
I mean, we can just ask Mike what his winner is.
Mike, who do you pick? He's thinking.
He's a professional thinker and talker.
He's thinking.
Or we can ask a more accomplished football player. Marshall, what do you think? Portal. 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 I think that's the one true champion. It's the one true champion. Give it up for the transfer portal.
The one true champion of our college football season, transfer portal chaos.
Yeah. I mean, the Heisman Trophy winner emerged from the transfer portal. Fight on, right? Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty good.
Transfer portal chaos. So, amid a field of 11 other peers, some more equal than others, transfer portal wins.
I mean, you've sent me borderline inappropriate messages about Sam Hartman. I got to watch Bo Nix instead of whatever Mario Cristobal was doing at Oregon. I'm a pretty big fan. You seem to be a pretty big fan. DM'd Devin Leary's high school coach randomly. That's not true. I just made that up.
It was a one-time thing.
Yeah, Ty is not a representative of the University of Notre Dame.
Sam Hartman and his Al Borland beard will fit in very nicely.
Good. We love it. They love it. The transfer portal is our one true champion.
One true champion. Put your hands together for the transfer portal. For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein. For myself, Ty Hildenbrand. Thanks for coming on out here to the Solid Verbal Live. Stay solid.
Peace.
All right. So here's the way this works. This microphone in between. We are going to bring this down.
No, we should make people sit right next to us. Yeah. We'll bring this down to somewhere in the middle between the seats.
Yep, we'll do about a half-hour Q&A. Typically is what we do at most of our live shows. So if you got anything you want to ask, you don't have to ask anything. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But we'll put this down there. Just line up and fire away. Ask
you
whatever.
do it. I'm going to trip. Yeah. And get personal with Ty. No, really dig in.
Smell Ty's hair.
Smell Ty? Don't smell Ty's hair. You can. Will that be a new tier on Patreon?
No.
Okay.